Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and I'm delighted this evening to be joined by Russell Boyce and Lawrence Connolly. Lawrence is getting stuck into his Bovril. Without further ado, I've got to thank Pie Sports, who, off their own back, sent us pies and Bovril for tonight's game. Thank you very much, guys, and we will enjoy them. Now, the team news is out. I'm going to come to you first, Russell. What's your thoughts on the team? We've been speaking all week about the certain dilemmas that we had around about the centre-half position and whether or not that would actually affect who you play in the number 6. We know that Stephen Welsh has made it alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, and Nero Beaton will be playing alongside Callum McGregor. What's your thoughts on those changes?
First and foremost, I'm delighted that Stephen Welsh is playing at centre-back. I think we had a great conversation about, the reasons why he should be included on Monday's show. And I stand by that. Everything that was discussed by the four of us, I think we were all in favour of him starting in. It's the right call. Mm-hmm. Beaton playing in midfield for me is his best position. For me, he's still very much a squad player, but Tom Rogic is out. We're away in Europe. He's got to weigh up. Does he balance it a wee bit more in the midfield rather than playing a similar midfield to what we did in Betis, for example? And he's went with Beaton there. I think if Rogic was fit, he would have probably started him and Turnbull and McGregor, which is quite an ambitious midfield in Europe. Mm-hmm. But it's forced his hand. I suppose there'll be a lot of fans now, Paul, scratching their heads on James McCarthy now. Mm. Is he going to be the latest victim of my theory on the show, I think from a year ago, that we had a brilliant chat last October about what does match fitness actually mean at Celtic, and how do you get match fit at Celtic? Because we're the only club that sign players and it takes them 4 months to actually get in the reckoning of the first team, if not in some cases a whole season like a Yeti last year. And McCarthy one is beginning to get a more puzzling by the week. And one of the reasons for that is as well, of course, he was a heavy investment. Mm-hmm. Beaton, you would have thought, would be the one on his way out of his Celtic career, perhaps in a transitional sort of phase, but he would be coming towards the end of his Celtic career with all the new plans happening at Celtic, and McCarthy would be on a 4-year deal very much at the forefront. So it is interesting that Beaton's preferred to him. I wonder how long that'll carry on for, but again, the positives are Welsh starts at centre-back, we're all glad of that, and Beaton, if he's going to be in the 11, we'd all rather he played in midfield than at centre-half as well. So it's a win-win in a kind of weird way.
No, you're right. I did have a niggling feeling that Ange would go for Beaton at centre-half. I did say that earlier on in the week. Although, if it was my choice, I would have gone for Stephen Welsh. I'm a big fan of Welsh. I think that this season he's been dropped twice now, and it's all about trying to get his confidence back up as well. We've seen the character shown by Tony Ralston, who's the same age as Stephen Welsh, who again starts this evening. He's got a new contract under his belt, Russell. And I think that Welsh last season came into the Celtic side at the worst possible time. And I remember when the announcement was made that he was starting against Rangers, Lawrence, at that point, he had only made one appearance for Celtic against Hamilton Accies. He had a loan spell out in Morton. He was basically thrown into the Celtic side, and it was a poor Celtic side, low in confidence, with a lot of drama happening and unfolding around about him. He's come through that, though, even though he hasn't been a regular this season, Lawrence. So you're quite confident that he can slot in alongside Carter-Vickers tonight?
Listen, I think he can. I think he probably will play the left-hand sided centre-half. But we've kind of talked about this, when do we give players a chance? And sometimes it is you need to bleed them a bit and take them out again. So I don't think he's let himself down in any games he's played. Is it the same level of Starfelt and Carter-Vickers? Not yet, but he's one that's come through the ranks. Mm-hmm. He's shown up well. He's not at all a centre-half, but he is good in there, both in our box and in their box.
Yeah.
Good passer of the ball. And it's always good to see, a Celtic that comes through the ranks making it. So hopefully he does go on to establish himself in the team. But listen, I'm no worries about him playing there. And same as Russell, I'm happier he's playing there than I am that, if he'd played near beaten there. I suppose McCarthy not playing, you'd maybe say, right, when is he going to get in the team?
Yeah,
when's he going to be up to speed?
Yep.
But maybe Ange's looking at it and saying, well, if we take a draw, Beaton's the guy that's played a bit, knows the system. If we take a draw for this game, it should be enough to see us into into Europe after Christmas. So maybe he's got a wee eye on that. But, there's a few players on the bench that maybe you wouldn't have called.
Well, we'll get onto the bench. I find it quite interesting, and every time we play in the Europa League, because obviously there's an amount of players on that bench that are required to fill jerseys, it really does show you how thin the squad is. The point that Russell made before around McCarthy, I think it's an important one to make, because I think you can also link in two guys on the bench, probably four in fact, McCarthy alongside the Liam Scales, who's a natural left-sided centre-half who's sitting on the bench, as well as Osaze, Urigide and Liam Shaw. Four players who have barely featured or not at all in the latter two. And it does beg the question, Russell, are these the type of players that suit Angie's style? Because, I mean, McCarthy, at what point does he become a consideration without worrying about his fitness? Because, when you look at Giakoumakis and how long it took him to get into the side because of a lack of fitness, you're looking at McCarthy and thinking, is it going to be like this for the next 4 years? He's got a 4-year deal. And you just never know whether or not he's going to be starting a game. And it's not through form, it's always fitness. And I know the experience that Beaton's got, but we've also seen Beaton on quite a few occasions in important games letting the side down. There's a temperament there, and he's let the side down a couple of times. So he's never going to be a fan's favourite, although when you look at his performance up at Pittodrie, other than the goal, because he should have done better with Ferguson at the corner kick, I think he's a bit of a safe pair. Surely, as a first pick, you're bringing him in with that investment and with that length of contract, Russell, he should be a first pick. At what point do you start worrying about the fact that Scales isn't being picked, McCarthy's not being picked? Are they even Ange signings? Is that a consideration at this stage?
Well, I think if we're honest, I'm not convinced even 50% of the signings made, in the summer or the transfer window were made by Ange. I'm really not, and I certainly think the two players you've just mentioned there fall into that bracket. The Liam Scales one, I think, is baffling when you look at the hokey-cokey that he's played with Bolingoli. You put your left foot in, your left foot out. He's in 1 week, and then he's out in the cold, and then he's back in. And I just don't understand that one either, with regards to Scales. And then McCarthy's, to me, was someone that I actually felt was going to bring that needed steel experience, and for want of a better term, as I always say, who gets it. And I thought he was going to bring that in abundance this season, despite the fact his injury record's not been great. He was very clear-cut in his press conference when he joined that fitness was not going to be a concern, and that he was feeling ready. The fact he's not included right now, we're now into November. How many games has James McCarthy started so far? One?
Started against Dundee United and went off at half-time, didn't he?
So that would tell you that there's... And again, he's been someone who mystically has been drifted out of the subs bench and then brought back into the subs bench. But
like Sorrow.
Yes, and you wonder, I mean, let's be honest, if we're not asking the questions about McCarthy to Ange directly, does he really need to come out and tell you if he's got a niggling knock? He's not going to want to do that. He doesn't have to do that. So unless he's getting questioned on it, I suppose we'll never know. Would I like to have thought by now, though, Paul, that he would be playing a far more prevalent role in the team? Of course I would. And I think these are the sort of games I actually think when James McCarthy was signed, I thought that he'd be ideal for. We heard a lot at the start of the season about things like Ange Ball, and it gave us all the fear when we were talking about 4-3s, and you'd rather, have high-scoring matches than win 1-0 and things like that. And I thought, well, to counter that, he signed James McCarthy, so maybe, that was actually a good strategy for the games that maybe you wouldn't go in your favour if you're playing, what we called at the time Ange Ball. Since then, though, when you look at the performance against Livingston, you look at the performance at Aberdeen that I know Neil Beaton did well in, you look at the second half against Hibs, James McCarthy fits into that game plan perfectly. He strolls into that, a fit, ready James McCarthy. So I think it is a big talking point as to what the mystique over this is now, you know, and why he's not getting included. Near Beaton seems to have, you know, Angie's ear for whatever reason or whatever the saying is. You know, I think Ange seems to like what he sees from Near Beaton, because that Michelin thing for me, you wouldn't have blamed anyone if they just cut their cord then. He was probably told when he came in, because obviously he's had to get a lot of feedback from the coaches that remain in position right now on what the squad's like, you know, who's doing well, who's done well. He needs help, you know, obviously with the feedback that way. I would have presumed that Near Beaton would have been one that would have been advised, squad player, potentially replaceable in the near future. James McCarthy comes in on a 4-year deal under Angie's regime. You would have thought it's a given that he would play ahead of Near Beaton. But let's not dwell on it too much, because I think obviously the good news, as I say, is I would much rather, if Near Beaton's going to be included, he plays in his best position. And I think that is centre midfield. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I think that the point you make there around cutting your cords with Beaton after the Michelin, Ange has done that with Barkas. And I think when you look, I don't know if he's picked up a knock. He certainly wasn't diving about trying to save any of the shots in the warm-ups recently. But it's given an opportunity, not for a game, but for experience, to Toby Uluwayemi, who is a young underage goalkeeper who's come on and sitting on the bench next to Scott Bain. I mean, that's invaluable experience, Lawrence. And, you know, it might not be a big talking point of the team selection, but I think it is important that when you've got a goalkeeper who's cost the club a lot of money and who's on very, very good wages, who basically isn't contributing, I'd much rather see a young goalie sitting on that bench.
Listen, it's not worked out for Barkas, has it? And I think Angie's said that's it, caught adrift. Definitely, get Toby on the bench. We've been hearing good things about him. He's probably got more of a future at Celtic than Barkas has. You know, we'd expect to see Barkas going either on loan, or if we can get any money for him, sell him in the January transfer window. I think for all parties, it's probably best that the sooner that finishes, the better. It's almost been a Martin Hayes-esque signing, hasn't it?
Martin Hayes. Oh my word, that is a blast from the past. I'm at the stage now where we know we spent £5 million on Barkas. I'd be happy to get the Joe Hart fee back for him, just to get him out the door, just to move him on. I'd be happy. Now, I'm bringing up Joe Hart because, you know, Welsh coming in, that's another combination in terms of the centre-half partnership. How important tonight, Russell, will Joe Hart be to settling in yet another defence?
Yeah, he is. He's vital in this regard. I mean, I think he definitely, and he oozes confidence. Everyone knows who Joe Hart is. That's the thing. You know, Joe Hart's someone that Stephen Welsh would have watched in the telly 10 years ago at the Euros and the World Cup. That's not even me being funny. That is genuinely the truth. So you imagine then playing with someone like that. You know, I think that will help big time. Of course it will. And Joe Hart's came here with a role to play at Celtic that's not just goalkeeping. He's there to try and help organise a brand new defence. He's there to inspire confidence in people. He's there to be a role model and an example. And I think that probably a lot of the work Joe Hart does, we don't see. I think Callum McGregor gave a snippet about Joe Hart a few weeks ago, and he says, wow, I could not believe it. He's the guy who collects the balls at the end of training. You know, it's Joe Hart who's doing that. And he said he's really impressed him with what his actual work ethic is like, not just, you know, doing the actual training regimes. Actually, you know, besides that, this guy is all about helping everyone, and it totally just gets it, again, to use that phrase. Joe Hart will be vital during the game as well. Of course he will, because we need loud voices. Now, Cameron Vickers is someone, though, I think, who's came in and has been quite commanding, in my opinion, Paul, since he's came in. I think he oozes a wee bit of that confidence around the team. I think he's helped Tony Ralston 100%. I also, and I'll go back to it, I think Tony Ralston, it wouldn't surprise you if he's the one in Stephen Welsh's ear in that dressing room before they come out tonight and saying, grab this, because, you know, I'm living proof. You can stay. You've been out for 2 minutes. You've been at the team for I was out it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm back in. And if you impress the gaffer, you'll stay in. and he won't care if Julian and Starfelt's fit if he thinks you're the best man to play at centre back, which is a wonderful ambition to be able to have.
No, you're right, because the proof is in the pudding. We've got a Croatian internationalist playing out of position. So your point you just made there is spot on, right? If you're playing well enough, you're staying in the team. There's going to be an element of rotation. Players aren't getting dropped. I mean, he spoke about Kyogo, and he says he's rotating the front line. And it brings us on to the next talking point. Kyogo's back. He's playing through the middle, Lawrence. I think everybody welcomes that. And that's not just because Giakoumakis missed a penalty, but the very fact that Giakoumakis is on the bench solves that debate around who takes the next penalty, because obviously it will be on Juranovic, I would guess. But how important do you think Kyogo is to being the focal point of that Celtic attack? He's far less impressive, I feel, when he's out wide.
Well, listen, I might be a bit controversial here. I'd rather have Giakoumakis get minutes in. I thought he was a wee bit off the pace at the weekend. I think he needs minutes in his legs. He's not played a lot of football since May. Maybe about 200 minutes. I'd rather protect Kyogo for the league. For me, I'm not too concerned about Europe. I'd much rather be.
Is there somebody else in the room with you there, Russell?
But
that is my good speaker.
We definitely do better when Kyogo goes through the middle and he looks a lot more effective, doesn't he? As much as Andrew said, listen, when I played him on the wings, don't worry, he's doing what I need him to do. I think the games we've dropped points in coincide with him not playing through the middle.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it sounded very sophisticated there, Russell. You could have kept up on going, mate.
You would know it's not someone in my room then if they sound sophisticated, mate,
Well, you've got Ralston and Welsh coming through, same age, and 22-year-old starting tonight. It's a great indication to the level of the youth development that Celtic have. You look a wee bit further up the park, you've got McGregor in there. He's the captain of the club. And Forrest is, for me, sometimes one of the most underappreciated Celtic players that we have, Russell. He's on the bench. You would be hoping at some point that he will be introduced. How important is Forrest, and we've spoken about this before, to the development of young Abada? 20 years of age, we keep going on about his age, but he needs to have that backup. He needs to have the experience of Forrest, not only pushing him on, but also helping him with his development.
Yeah, there's two sides to it. You're absolutely right. The best form you'll get off Forrest is when Forrest is pushed for his jersey, which, had Forrest been fit at the start of the season and Abada was playing like that, wow, what a competition you had for that right wing slot. That would have been fascinating, in fact, to see how that would have panned out, because let's be honest, Abada's start to his Celtic career was absolutely outstanding for a 19-year-old kid, And yes, he's faded a wee bit, but again, a wee bit of perspective on that one. Whilst, we're always keen to say, you look at the situation Postecoglou's inherited, you've got to always look at, that then with everyone. And I think Abada's came into a brand new team, a team perhaps lacking in confidence, implementing new methods. He's only 19 years old. He's came from a foreign league. It was a heck of a lot. And I wonder if he's almost getting judged harshly because of the electric start that he made. And I wonder if, you're going to get hot and cold moments, I think, with someone. I know he's just turned 20 now. I think, you're going to get hot and cold moments with that. However, James Forrest, fully fit, he'll be now saying, well, I'll take that jersey off you once I'm back, 100%. Can that kick Abada on? You would like to think so. Flip it the other way around. James Forrest seems to thrive when his jersey's remotely under pressure. Paddy Roberts is the prime example of that. And no one actually thought James Forrest, I think people maybe doubt James Forrest's actual strength of character at times. And I think, when you seen it illuminated was under Brendan Rodgers, that first season where Paddy Roberts, yes, he played a lot of games and stuff like that, but James Forrest was your right winger, and he, by the next season, was in the distance, the number one right winger at Celtic. And Forrest earned that because he had what it takes to go toe-to-toe with real competition for his jersey. And I think it's a good thing to have competition, and I like the fact they're both at different ends of their career. James Forrest may get more niggler injuries now he's turned 30. I think he's about to turn 30, if not already. He's going to get more maybe niggly injuries, or maybe need to be rotated a wee bit more. He's not old by any stretch, but you know what I mean. Sometimes wingers like that, they could lose half a yard of pace. He'll be rotated a wee bit more. And then Leo Labada, bring him in and get his confidence up when needed as well. And I think it's really healthy what we've got with the two of them in the right. That's actually a position of strength for me. It's now providing you're hoping that someone like Mikey Johnson can do the same for Jota on the left. If not, another. Bringing in, and just having a wee bit more competition on the left-hand side. But I like the thought of a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old going head-to-head for the right wing slot. One with bags of experience and the other one fearless. And I think Abada needs to get back to being the fearless way he started. I think he's playing with a wee bit too much caution just now.
You know, the thing that you've mentioned there, it's the perfect scenario for the manager, isn't it? To have that experience and the youth both battling out for the right-hand position. On the left-hand side, of course, you've got one of the biggest successes that we've had this season in Jota. And I keep going on about that moment. We spoke about it earlier today, JP and I, talking about that moment where he's just pulled the ball out of nowhere against Livingston. And he's had the audacity just to admire it, which is tremendous because we were all admiring it as well. He has been dynamite at times, Lawrence, and I was excited early doors to see Abada, Jota and Kyogo, the three-pronged attack of Celtic. We've learned that, over the two games against Livingston, we apparently crossed in 81 times from the left and the right, and we actually failed to score a single goal. How do we change that approach? Is it more about Abada and Jota being more direct and coming more central to open it up with Kyogo's movement, stretching the back line?
Listen, I don't think Ferencváros are going to play the same low block that Livingston did. This is a must-win game for them. We could afford a draw in this. For them, they've got to win it, haven't they?
Absolutely.
So I don't think we're going to have to change it for this game. I think it's going to be more open for them and they're going to get more opportunities. But if you're asking, what do we do against Livy? I think sometimes we maybe need to be looking at a midfield. Ange's already identified it. When Rodric's not there, where is the creativity coming from?
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of shots. I know the box was busy with players, but you could be taking shots and hoping for a ricochet in there or a second ball to fall to somebody. You need to be kind of trying to disrupt the way they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
They're set up so they can't get behind them. They've got everyone in the box so they can deal with crosses. And, the packed that defence, it's hard to play through. So maybe some speculative shots, hard and low into the box, see where it falls to. I think we just kind of need to try and disrupt what they're doing, not play their game plan. Because that seemed to be what we were doing. We're playing, they were like, well, this is how we're going to sit deep behind the ball. You can't get behind us, throw the crosses in. We've got big guys in it. There's a few big players in there, certainly bigger than our guys. They were eating everything up, weren't they? They get crossed into the box. So, yeah, I think we've got to come up with a way to disrupt him. For me, I'd have been looking at, Turnbull, McGregor, to be getting shots off early. And listen, you might know it's going to hit a Livingston player somewhere in the box, but you don't know where it's going then. You're maybe looking at one of your forwards then to be getting on the end of it. I heard it was said that, Giacomakis thrives in chaos. Well, maybe that's what you're looking for. He's been.
He would have done well last season at Celtic Park then, Lawrence. If he thrived in chaos.
Yeah. Well, I'm not too sure who done well last season at Celtic Park, but probably the least said. The best.
Let's move on from that. I found it very interesting some time ago. I was speaking to Alan Morrison about that very thing, Lawrence, with regards to scoring from distance. And it's not just about have a crack, because you're running out of ideas. There are certain players who created a huge amount of goals under Brendan Rodgers, for example. Players such as Stuart Armstrong, Dembele was particularly good at it. Paddy Roberts was good at it. That's something, you think about him being a jinky winger, but he was good from distance. And the players that we've got in the team at the moment who can also do that, I think that was one element of the Livingston game that was the biggest disappointment for me, Russell. Lawrence has spoken time and time again about how we were struggling to break down Ross County until we got that deflection. Carter Vickers was credited with a goal, but it was just a speculative effort. And I think that, they're packing the defence. absolutely. But from time to time, you know the striking prowess of someone like David Turnbull. Do you look upon him as having to step up to the plate in games like that? And if at some point tonight we really are struggling to break down the defence of Ferencváros, are you looking at a player like David Turnbull with his striking ability?
Well, there's two sides to it as well, because yes, I felt on Saturday no one wanted to take ownership, responsibility, call it what you will, and have it. You know, I was saying on Monday, have a dig. I know that sounds so simple, but at times, Lawrence, like Lawrence says, you might just get that ricochet. Something different might happen to just keep continually following this method. And it was so predictable. You know, we have to get players to take ownership, take responsibility, grab the game by the scruff of the neck. My issue, though, with David Turnbull being the man to do that is, I look at the Hibs game, and he was in a prime position. He shoots high and wide. I look at him at the weekend. He shoots high and wide. He is going to... I always felt he was someone who had quite a bit of composure when it comes to in front of goal. And his long-range shooting was one of his biggest assets, really. Recently, he's been in two very promising, goal-scoring opportunities he's had.
Yeah.
And he's failed miserably. And that worries me. What it would tell me if he's going to go on to be the David Turnbull I think we all know he can be, is you own those mistakes or those mishaps, whatever you want to call it, and you start, grabbing the game more and taking more of these chances, because we've seen the shot that he did with a bit of swaz. We know what he's capable of. It was a cracking shot. It was a brilliant goal. And he's got that in his locker. But if you don't shoot, you've got no chance. But don't let the far easier opportunities that you've missed, firstly, don't miss them. But secondly, if you are going to miss them, don't let them consume you. I think that will be very important. And without Rogic, who is someone who's having this reinvention this season in his slippers, which I'm all for, but he is taking responsibility at times. He just basically decided against Hibs, I'll do it myself. That mazy run for the, before the assist for Kyogo, that to me, Rogic, he deserves the assist for that, because he's done so much great work in that.
Yeah.
Someone's going to need to step up and be able to take. One thing I'll say, we don't take on enough players either. We've got to, whether it be shots on goal, whether it be missing a man out when you're passing to get the ball out wide, if that's the system you're playing, or take a man on, beat a man, turn the player, get some players facing their own goal. I can't think of any occasion at the weekend where
good point.
living players are facing their own goal. So a combination of all that. I know it all sounds very straightforward sitting here in my comfy chair saying that, but I do believe Celtic could have took more risk when in possession on Saturday. That doesn't need to be a stinging criticism either. It's just a fact. 85% possession with 2 shots and goal is low-risk football.
Yeah.
End of story. Right? So what I would say is tonight, I think it'll be more open anyway, because Ferencváros got beat, obviously, from us. They're the home team. They've got a crowd also to perform for as well. And they're fighting for their European lives as well, if you like, to stay in Europe after the Christmas. So if we've got more space, make the most of it. Tonight could be a crucial night where Kyogo's back in the middle and we see a completely different Celtic. 5 games we've dropped points in the league so far, Paul. Kyogo hasn't started 4 of them, and the one time he did start, he was left midfield. You do not drop him unless you absolutely have to. He may well not be of Henrik's level, but in this downsized Celtic team from the Martin O'Neill era, he is certainly as valuable in that team as what Henrik was.
I think you made a number of good points there. But whilst you were talking about the long-range efforts of, let's say, David Turnbull and Rogic, because they're the two obvious choices. They're the 2 guys that are going to create something outside the box. Yep. It occurred to me that 2 of the guys who used to take a lot of risks for Celtic and were criticised from time to time for taking those risks were Ryan Christie and Mo Elyounoussi. And I think that when you look at a lot of their goals, a lot of their strikes, they were from distance. We're missing that this season, Lawrence, without a doubt. And it is time for Turnbull to step up to the plate. And on a night like tonight, there's no better time to do it. I think when we're looking at that bench, one final point I would make is that, £10 million of talent hasn't even made it onto that bench tonight. And Barkas and Yeti. And you just hope that we're able to, because, when you're looking at that level of investment, that's a very young bench that we've got on there. Dane Murray, who I thought done really, really well when he came in alongside Welsh, but it wasn't ideal, his introduction to the side. It's good to see him there, but it just shows you how thin we are in terms of the squad. And hopefully, Ange will get the money and the finance to bring in a number of players in January. We're struggling for a number 6. We spoke earlier, Lawrence, about bringing back Victor Wanyama. He seems to want to come back to Celtic. I don't know if that's wishful thinking, but let's go to the action. We will be back at half-time. We do have Kevin McCluskey in the stadium, so we'll hopefully be dialing him in. If not at half-time, then certainly at full-time. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved in the comment section, and hopefully you enjoy the first half. Thanks for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.